Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. And on behalf of myself, I introduced you to my left, Prince Abdullah, who is now proud co-owner of Sheffield United Football Club. The Prince, like myself, is a sports fanatic. Not got the dyed-in-the-wool red and white stripes as yet, but he's learning fast. And probably it's worthwhile advising you that I met the Prince by chance in London back in January, and at an informal meeting held before he was off to watch Chelsea, of all teams, playing a Champions League match. We just talked sport, football, Sheffield United obviously in particular, and I began to explain to him at that meeting the rudiments of our club, fine, proud history and heritage, and a recent history of misfortune of, we've got so far and then had hiccups in indeed why we're playing in League One at this present time. But it was a very warm meeting, and that to myself surprisingly led to further dialogue, which led to educating the Prince more on Sheffield United, meeting the Prince's colleagues, and to my left this morning we have two of our other new directors, Saladin Baki from Turkey, who's available for interview as well, and Jim Phipps. Jim's from the States but has worked with the Prince for many years, and Jim's the one then that we took a lot of time with here in Sheffield, as well as spending time with colleagues in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and obviously dialogue in London. So the team began to sort of work with each other. Scott McCabe, Julian Winter and Simon McCabe spent time with our respective colleagues, so that the education and background to our club, joint expectations for the future, were well recognised before we then concluded our legal arrangements, and before obviously this formal press conference today to introduce the Prince to you. I can assure you he's a sportsman through and through. He's got a good knowledge of sport, football in particular, but also this game called NFL, which I don't really understand, so you can test him on that if there's some experts around. And on a personal basis, I'm proud to have him as our partner. I think it'll be a fantastic new chapter in the history of Sheffield United Football Club going forward, and a chapter that's required. We all know it as football supporters. This game has changed. The industry of football has changed. Thankfully, it's the English game that perpetrates around the globe, and we're part of the history and heritage of football. This is where it all began, at Bramall Lane, and I hope journalists not from Sheffield but from the rest of the UK and indeed internationally, our journalists and reporters from Saudi, appreciate it. This is where it all began. We want our club, which is already a big club, to become ever bigger and more successful, and joining together to become more global is, in our view, the way to do it. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Prince to you, who will now address you with a few words.